Welcome everyone, it's Dr. Grayson. Hope your day is amazing. And today we're going to tackle the very important topic of pricing strategy for your products and services. And why is this so important? It's probably one of the most difficult things to get right in marketing, but you need to go to market with a good, sound strategy in terms of pricing, or because it sets the stage for every other pricing decision that you make thereafter. So I have a question for you before we start. Here is my question. I want you to think a moment about who signed your paycheck. I was actually asked this question in a job interview, one of my very first job interviews out of college. And someone asked me this question, and I immediately said, well, the head of the accounting department signs my paycheck. And I felt really smart because, I'm a business major and I'm coming in, I'm talking about the accounting people and the finance people. They sign the paycheck. You can see their signature down at the bottom. And I was meeting with the president of the company at the time for an entry-level marketing job. And he said, no, that's not right. And I thought to myself, what do you mean? Obviously, I said, well, I asked him, well, who does sign my paycheck? And he gave me one of the most important pieces of information I'll never forget. And he said, the customer signs your paycheck, which is so true. And not only does without a customer, we don't have a product, we don't have a business. And I always keep this in mind with every decision I make in marketing, but particularly when it comes to pricing. So when you're looking at the overall marketing mix, pricing is one of the very most important elements to think about. But we don't do this. We don't think about pricing until we have a great idea of who our target audience is, what their needs and their wants are, what our product is, the value of our product to meet those needs, and not until then do we ever think about pricing, because we need to price our products based on what the market is willing to bear. So I want to start out by telling you that pricing is a lot more than just math. We have to think about the context of everything that is going on within society. The demand for our particular products, is there a need for it? And if so, how much of a demand is there? Are there legal or ethical issues? What does it cost us to make that product and deliver it to the end consumer? What about strategic concerns? Are we entering a market? Are we trying to recoup some of the research and development costs that we've had? Where is that product within the product life cycle? Is it a brand new product? Do we have to work through the adoption or the growth phase? Is it a product that we're retiring? And then we need to also, not until then, really think about what's the competition doing in terms of pricing. And what is that consumer willing to pay? So pricing is really a strategic function more than a math function. So there's 3 components that you need to understand about a pricing strategy. First is the cost. How much does it cost you to make the product or service and deliver it into the hands of the consumer? Secondly, the price that consumers are willing to pay for the value that you have established. And that's finally that value. What is the value the customers are willing to acquire from the product? So you have 3 components that are really important. And what I will tell you is that you will get pressure from your finance teams, etc., on having a particular profit margin and meeting a particular threshold. And that's really important to understand because nobody wants to work for free, right? We want to make a profit, but we have to understand that there's a lot more levers that go into pricing, and we want to make sure that the price we set is the value that the consumer is willing to pay. So let's start off with the basics, product cost. So there's two types of costs. There's a fixed cost, and the fixed costs are those costs that do not vary. They're everything you have to do before you ever build something. So think about it. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and, like my son and I, and we're starting a clothing company. And we're designing our own clothes and bringing them to market. Well, before we ever even went through the manufacturing process, we had expenses. You have expenses like, where are we going to do the work? Are we doing the work at home? Are we going to rent an office space? What about the cell phones? What about the heat, the utilities? All of these things that you pay for before you ever produce anything is a fixed cost. Now, variable costs are those things that directly change with every item you make. So if you're thinking about fashion and you look at our pair of jeans that we have on the screen here, every decision you make that goes into that piece of clothing has a cost associated with it. The materials, maybe there's a particular type of denim that you like, maybe a stretchy denim, maybe a cotton denim. Are you going to put a label on the back that you want to predominantly place? What about the rivets, the stitching? Every decision you make, the cut, every decision you make has a variable cost associated with it. So our goal is to develop an understanding of what our fixed costs are and what our variable cost to make one unit is. So that is the product cost. Now, I want you to think a little bit about the basics of product calculations. Now, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to create a profit. So we need to understand how we calculate profit. Many of you have taken accounting and finance classes and basic math classes, so you understand what profit is. Profit is total revenue, and if you recall, total revenue really is your sales, your price multiplied by the quantity you sell. And profit is your total revenue and subtract out the total costs. And so what we're trying to understand when we're calculating the basics of profit, where is that break-even mark? How many do we have to sell to break even? Because you've probably heard many, many times over that most small businesses or most businesses and products fail within the first 4 to 5 years. That's because they haven't met a break-even point. They're not at least profitable. So the break-even analysis is the total fixed cost divided by 1 unit minus the variable cost of 1 unit. So you need to be familiar with these calculations because you will need them as you start to determine what your pricing model is. So there's pricing decisions as a multi-step process. And what we do is we have several steps that we go through, and usually it's around 6 steps. You're going to develop a pricing objective. What do you want to accomplish with your pricing strategy? You're going to assess your target market's price evaluation. You're going to evaluate the competitors' prices, select a basis for pricing, select a pricing strategy, and not until then do you set your price. And we're not finished at that point. We always look and adjust based on each of these factors. So let's start off with understanding the fundamentals of developing pricing objectives. This is what you want to accomplish. You may want to have, you may be a company that's in survival mode. Remember when the hoverboards were big and everybody had to get one, and then people started to hurt themselves and they'd catch on fire. Well, some products you just have to survive. So they might do a deep dive just to recoup any cost they have. So survival could be an objective. Market share is another objective. Maybe you are entering an existing market and you want to enter that market and capture share from someone else. So in order to capture share in an existing market, you're going to have to either have a really great unique product that's different from the competitors, or you might have to cut your price in order for you to grow share. The third one is communication. Now, communication is sending a message with your price to demonstrate the value to the end user. For example, when I lived in Minneapolis, we used to have this cheap pizza place called $5 Pizza. And basically $5 pizza is you get what you pay for. You get some cardboard with a little bit of cheese and some sauce on it. But if you have a house full of kids like I did, basketball players that came over every weekend, you had to have, sort of an inexpensive way of paying for that. But right in the name of the business, they tell you their value, $5. Basically, you get what you pay for. You might have a couponer, like Papa John's. When was the last time you ever paid full price for a delivery pizza? These are coupon tactics. So you're never going to pay full price because you can get a deal on the website or a promo code, or you're going to have a coupon that you can rip off from the top of the box from the last time. They said a strategy based on couponing. Or you may go to a fancy pizza place like Giordano's. Giordano's is based out of Chicago. There's one in Minneapolis, one in Vegas that I've been to. And Giordano's is one of those high-end pizza places. When you go into Giordano's, you're not going to walk out of there without spending at least $100. So you got the $5 pizza place and you have the $100 pizza place, but when walking in, it's about the experience, that whole value proposition, big, thick pizza, the best ingredients you're going to have. You're not only going to get the pizza, you're going to get the salad and the breadsticks and a beautiful cocktail to go with it. So pricing your products can send a message via communication. And then you might even have a reputation. You might come out like Walmart does and says, we're the low-cost provider. Nobody's going to beat our prices. They say it in their value proposition that, yes, you may not get the highest quality goods, but we are telling you you're getting the lowest price. So the first thing you have to do is determine what your objective is. Secondly, you need to assess the target market's evaluation. You have target audiences that you have aligned to your product. People that you are definitely groups of people you are going to go after based on the value of your product. Some of these customers are price sensitive. They're only going to be attracted to the least expensive option. They're going to do everything they can, from looking for promo codes, only going to sales, clipping coupons. That might be your target audience. You may have a value-sensitive customer that really mentally factors in their head quality into the equation. So for example, if you are looking for a vehicle and you want to have a luxury vehicle that's going to have all the bells and whistles inside, all of the Internet of Things, the leather seats, the buttery feel, the smooth drive, you're calculating that value into the cost of the product. Then you might have time-sensitive target market. These are people who go into, think about it if you're going into the gym and you absolutely need a bottle of water. You're going to pay what you can for that bottle of water because you need to quench your thirst. The need is there, so you're going to pay a premium for that convenience. So what we need to understand is we can't assume that the market is predominantly price sensitive. And that's a mistake that a lot of businesses make, is that we have to meet the price of the competitor and that our target audience only wants to pay a lesser price than the next best alternative, which isn't true at all. You have to think about what the value is overall. So don't make that mistake. Now, you don't necessarily have to compete on price. You need to look at, as I mentioned, that overall value proposition. And do that by understanding your strengths and weaknesses and your unique value that the competitors don't have. So that in a nutshell is just basic pricing theory that you need to understand before you work into developing your pricing strategy. We will finish this up in the next video, And I hope that you take a moment to pause and think about how important pricing strategy is in not only having a profitable company, but making sure that your target audience, your product is priced to the overall value of your offering and what the consumer is willing to pay. Take care.